there's no stronger P20 connection, the P20 word meaning preschool through college, than the teacher preparation cycle of where universities prepare teachers who go and teach students who then become the future students. So we have a significant investment in making sure we do a really good job in preparing teachers. And we're in the 21st century now, and things are a lot different than they were before, and we need to think about how do we redesign the work that we do so that we're preparing teachers for that 21st century environment. Now, there are some elephants in the room that we can help address, but we need help to it. Colleges of education and others need help addressing. One, of course, is that we have an increasing number of minority-majority schools being taught by all white teachers for the most part. So we need to diversify the teaching workforce. That's certainly something that I know is a priority for many colleges of education around the country. We need to intensify that, and we need to work with leaders in regions and cities to help to create pathways for more diverse students to enter the teaching profession. But to entering the teaching profession is another piece where is it an attractive profession to get into? And a lot of elephants in the room. I don't know how big the room is going to have to be, but one is basically it's not so, I'm not going to talk about money right now, but it is respect for the teaching profession. When studies have been done of Scandinavian countries and other countries who actually outperform us a lot in education indices, what they find there is that teaching is regarded highly as one of those very elevated professions for people to go into. And in colleges, what you find is many of the very best students are choosing teaching as the way to go in. We need to work hard with advocacy. Certainly we can do that from the university side, but this is another area where we need help to begin to change some of the attitudes toward teaching. Unfortunately, I think a mistake that's often pointed to that many of the reform efforts in K-12 education have made over the last 15, 20 years is in reforming, they have chosen to attack the teaching profession and demean the teaching profession. We have to get out of that mode, because why would anyone want to go into a profession that's being demeaned and attacked regularly in the public? So we have to elevate the status of the teaching profession, and then I'll just say the third elephant in the room, this big room, is pay. We have to start finding ways to pay teachers reasonable salaries with reasonable benefits for them to be willing to go into that profession. So I say all that up front because I want to talk about a lot of things we need to do to change the actual preparation of teachers. Sometimes when you say all this, though, teachers will go, oh my gosh, you're loading. My wife was a teacher for 38 years before she retired. You keep loading stuff on us and you still demean us and you don't pay us well. What's the deal here? So I want to be sensitive to acknowledging those big picture issues. But in terms of the actual direct teacher preparation, what are some changes that we need to make, and many programs are in the midst of making? One is you've got to shift the focus from teaching to learning. And what that means is there's a lot of really great work being done, for example, in cognitive sciences now about learning and how different people learn in different ways, how learning happens. We need to infuse a lot more of that best knowledge in cognitive science into our teaching preparation programs. As again, I'm not implying that places aren't doing this. I'm just saying this has to be done at scale and consistently. And in moving from that shift from teaching to learning, that means there's other ripple effects. So formative assessment becomes more important than summative assessments, and how you use formative assessments to help students move along. And you treat learning as the constant and classroom seat time as the variable. So you really are trying to make sure that the students learn what they need to know. It's not an industrial model where everything moves along the assembly line semester by semester, and some people fall off and some people aren't as good quality at the end of the semester, but you move them on anyway because the assembly line must keep moving. That's the Henry Ford model of education. We need to move one where learning is the constant, using the best research we have in cognitive science to make sure that our students are learning what they need to learn, and preparing our teachers to take that same approach in formative assessments with their students. Another change, I think, in what's happening out there, and it's not just technology, but it's related to technology, and that is that we have to stop thinking of the four walls of the classroom as the boundary for learning. That we're beginning, increasingly we're creating what some people have called learning environments. And students are going to be learning maybe not 24/7, they have to sleep sometime, but there are many ways in which they can access learning. And as teachers, we need to be able to help them figure out how to use those different avenues for learning. And it's not just limited to what is happening in the classroom, but how can they make learning a part of their lives in a broader sense. And again, I think with the new forms, infusing technology, which our students are doing anyway, but infusing it around the learning process is an important piece. I think there's a subtle change from what we always say we need planning time for teachers. And I think we have to move from like planning, like what are we going to talk about in different sessions, to what some people call design thinking, learning design, and how we're going to design the information in ways that maximize the learning potential for the students. Another issue, I think, is teachers beginning to see themselves as facilitators of learning rather than the source of learning. One of my favorite phrases from Montessori, the Montessori education realm, is teachers should be a guide on the side and not a sage on the stage. That's true at every level of education, including college, but I think in K-12 education, rather than the teacher being the center of attention in the classroom, it needs to be the learning that's the center of attention. And the teacher, again, it goes back to that learning environment rather than a classroom, and the teacher needs to be the facilitator of helping students find their way. That also makes the assumption that students are, if put in the right environment, active learners. It's not like they have to be pushed and pulled. They will learn if we can create the right environment for them. And lastly, I think, we use the word instructional leadership all the time. And we talk about principals being instructional leaders. But I think given the changing dynamics of the types of students we're teaching, the accelerated pace of change in the society, we're going to have to do a better job of preparing teachers to be really leaders, instructional leaders in making the changes, because who better to understand what changes need to be made at what points than the people that are on the ground working with the students. So those kinds of leadership skills and instructional leadership should be at the core of what we are providing to our teachers. So again, I think in general it's a refocus on learning. As one of my friends once said, if you're focused on classroom seat time as a proxy for learning, you're focused on the wrong end of the student. But a focus on learning, and then coming with that is the learning environment, the more sophisticated use of technology to provide a broader outside the classroom's conception of how learning occurs, with an active learner student, and a teacher being the leader for what needs to happen in that classroom and what needs to change over time as our students change and continually become more diverse.